Shalom, everyone, and welcome to Finding Shalom and our Acts series. We are on Acts chapter 25. We're almost to the end, and it's getting close. Paul has been in prison for 2 years now. And we're going to jump right into that. But first, for the question of the day, Jay gave me an idea for a question of the day. So do you want to go ahead and ask the question you were thinking of?
Yeah, my question for everybody was, is there a certain point in your life where you're the most happy? Happiness, joy, just very content.
You want me to go first?
Do you want me to say what mine is?
Sure.
So mine is, when I was about 8 years old, my mom and my dad took me to, there was this elementary school down the street from where we live. And my dad would pitch, hard baseballs to me. He had like a bucket of them and he'd pitch them and he'd let me hit. And now that I think back on it, it was very happy time because they divorced when I was 11. But I got to spend that time with them as a family unit because I was an only child with my mom and my dad and me. It was the three of us. Kind of like the Three Musketeers. And so that was a really good time in my life. And we would do that for quite a while, like when I was 8, 9, maybe even to 10. He'd always do that. So
That's really a neat memory.
The funny part I really enjoyed, and I just remembered it, is when I would hit him. If I hit him directly back at him, he would do this whole, dodging thing to try to miss the base. Because, they were baseballs, and I was hitting them pretty hard.
You were doing really good, huh?
Yeah, it was fun. So that would be my high point of my lifetime, is that
Those
my
years.
my favorite year or years, yeah.
That's really neat.
That was when I had the most happiness, is because my parents were still together, and we got to spend time together, so, yeah.
Well,
what about you?
My happiest time, I'm pretty happy now, but I think the happiest I've ever been was right when we had first gotten married and we had toddlers. I know most people don't like that time period, but once I got over this no sleep thing.
Yeah.
After that, but when they were toddlers and just having them around and you coming home from work and just playing with them in the garden and playing them with Play-Doh. I don't know, it was a simpler time.
Mm-hmm. That was a great, that was a great
just
time
simple,
too. Yeah.
It
was a lot of fun.
Like most of the time we were on the ground just playing with the kids. Like there wasn't anything.
Yeah, for sure.
Those were good years. Those are some of my favorite. I still think back on those and miss them.
Yeah.
I think I'm probably in my happiest time now.
Yay!
No. Mostly because I'm sure about the direction I'm heading. I have good friends that are positive influences in my life, and I get to spend time with my mother, which is important because she's elderly.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long I'll have her.
Yeah.
And I get to spend time with little children who are my cousins.
You do.
So
You got it all.
So I have it all, and
Uh-huh.
I have getting old aches and pains and whatnot, but life's not perfect,
Yeah.
and we're all gonna have issues, but I'm on the right track, and I'm only 54. I'm finally on the right track.
That's
So yes,
awesome,
I'm
though.
truly happiest now.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Well, when I was in the 4th grade, we lived in town, and they bought a house. My parents bought this house out in the country, and I said, I'm not moving unless I get a horse. So the first horse I got was a hand-me-down Welsh pony from my cousin, and then it just progressed from there.
That's
And
so cool.
yeah, I was in a junior riding club. We did a lot of trail rides. My mom and dad got involved in the horses, and we spent a lot of time camping on the horses up in the mountains, and that was like my most favorite time of my life. Plus I got to in the wintertime snow ski a lot, which was also just exhilarating for me. I just loved it. But again, too, being able to be a stay-at-home mom for 5 years with Kyle was probably a good time too.
Mm-hmm.
But having my horses and being able to be up in the mountains was the best.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
That sounds nice.
Cool memories. That's awesome. Okay, well, let's go ahead and open up to chapter 25. Okay, there isn't much. This is going to be a short one because we are going to save the last little section for next week to go with our Agrippa and Bernice thing. We'll see them a little bit. They'll appear a little bit. But let's go ahead and chew away at this little tiny passage for a little bit. Let's do verses 1 through 6a. Basically, we're going to do when Festus is in Jerusalem. Someone wants to read that?
3 days after arriving in the province, Festus went up to Caesarea to Jerusalem, where the chief priests and Jewish leaders appeared before him and presented the charges against Paul. They urgently requested Festus, as a favor to them, to have Paul transferred to Jerusalem, for they were preparing an ambush to kill him along the way. Festus answered, Paul is being held at Caesarea, and I myself am going there soon. Let some of your leaders come with me and press charges against the man there if he has done anything wrong. After spending 8 or 10 days with them, he went down to Caesarea, and the next day he convened the court and ordered that Paul be brought before him.
Okay, so we'll save that the next day for the next thing. But while he's in Jerusalem, let's talk about that. I wanted to just kind of narrow in on that before we went on. And why do you think the Jewish leaders were still angry at Paul 2 years later? So he'd been sitting in prison in Caesarea for 2 years, and they haven't forgotten. The moment he arrived, they're like right there with the case. Oh, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, in one of those videos, it talked about why they really hated him and wanted him dead. And they said because he was a persecutor of Christians. They resented his work, which was preaching to the Gentiles.
Oh, yeah.
He preached salvation, which told people they didn't have to obey the Jewish laws anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They were jealous of him.
Jealousy, yeah.
And they were feeling betrayed because at one point he was with them and the next point he's like, no.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and they just hung on to that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was crazy. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, for what he was charged with, that was nothing compared to, but why they hung on to that. They almost seemed unforgiving, bitter.
Yeah, they had a lot of bitterness.
I think they were a little
Yeah.
bit afraid of him too because of what he was, accomplishing.
Yeah, I don't know how many years this is after Jesus. It's not that much farther after Jesus. But these might be some of the same people that were trying to kill Jesus because they were trying to stop this movement that kept growing. And here, now we got, they got rid of Jesus, and now Paul's taking off with the same, they're like, we can't get rid of this. We cannot. They're afraid of what he's going to
Moving
do.
and we can't stop it.
It even happens today. The Christian religion is maligned horribly, and it's because, you think, why would people be after a Christian so bad? Well, because it's the one true way.
Yeah.
And so what better way to destroy something good than to...
It's dangerous.
It's dangerous, yeah.
Yeah, it's it's a risk. Or not a risk, but it's it's risking Satan's schemes, and he is afraid of it. That's why, as a Christian, you actually get, the closer you get to God and really starting to do his work, the harder you're hit with the enemy's arrows. You know, just kind of like, don't, like, you know, you're a risk to have you out there as a Christian, because you're gonna cause some trouble.
We heard a pastor preach one time, and it was here not too long ago. He says, if Satan doesn't know your name, then you're not doing anything for God. If he does know your name, then you need to keep going in the direction you're going to get people saved and get them to believe in Jesus. Because if he knows your name, then you're obviously working very good for God.
That was, I think, when we were talking about Jesus. It's the demons.
Yep.
Jesus we know.
Yep.
Paul we know.
Yep.
But who are you?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like even the demons knew Paul's name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess for us, we want his attention, or we want to make him known of us because we're doing a good work for God.
Yeah.
We want to stir his pot so where he knows. You can harass us all you want or try to, but we serve the King of Kings.
Yeah.
And he is the ultimate judge, and he can just go and knock you away. So yeah,
But then at the same time, it puts a big target on your forehead.
it's all right. It's all right. I mean, look at Paul. You don't think Paul had a target?
Yeah. He had a
Paul
big
had
target.
a huge target.
He had a huge target. I
His,
mean,
his whole body was the bullseye.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And what did I see it on one of those videos or something? But it says, or what? I don't know. But you see this guy saying, "You and whose army?" And there's like the legion of angels back here.
That was Lynn.
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 On Facebook, yeah.
One of our friends.
This army back here.
You and what army? There's a legion. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That is true. Because sometimes I'm like, oh, do I want to be at the target anymore? I'm tired. I'm worn out. I want to just pull back, you know? But yeah, you're right. You got an army behind you, so why are you not?
I had a friend that said that he was being just bullied so bad one night, and he was coming out of a bar or a dance hall or something, and these guys that were giving him such a hard time were waiting for him.
Oh my goodness.
And when he came out, they all just kind of backed away because they saw what was behind him.
Yeah. They were like, he's like, why are they backing away from me? He's got some big old.
He says like, that's the only thing because I was the only one there.
Yeah, so they could have taken him out.
Like, you know, they must have said something in reference to who'd you bring with you or
Yeah.
whatever, and he was like,
Sometimes I forget, you know, when Satan is messing with my head so much, I forget who's backing me. You know, sometimes you can feel like the victim. You can feel all woe is me, and you're like, hey, wait a minute. I should be like Elijah's prophet, or not his prophet, his little helper. Protege.
That's sitting there all freaked out, scared to death. And
Yeah.
then Elijah says, open his eyes so he can see what I see.
And they're backed by this gigantic army.
It's like, what are you worried about?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
It'd be so cool to see.
Yeah. I kind of wish
Anything
we
to see
could
that.
see, you know.
yeah,
I wish, well,
The demon part, probably not.
no.
Probably freak you
yeah.
out. Probably be like nightmares forever.
Yeah.
But the good side of things, all the angel armies,
And just show me the good.
That would be amazing. Yeah, make the bad guys blurry and make the angel armies stand out. you know,
Yeah.
to where you can just like go, oh wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
That would be really
Yeah.
good. Yeah, that's why Paul seems to have no fear. I mean, if I was sitting in a prison for 2 years, I'd be a little down. I'd be a little like discouraged. I wouldn't be so bold to stand up. You know,
He's got no issues. He's very bold.
he's obviously staying very connected to God.
Yep.
He's obviously every day on his knees and having God completely talk to him and comfort him.
Yeah. He reminds me a lot of Daniel. You know,
Oh, yeah.
when Daniel would go out and pray 3 times a day and he'd open up his balcony doors. You
Yep.
remember that?
Yeah.
In Daniel? in the book of Daniel, and he had no fear. Remember, they told him you're not allowed to do that, and he'd open up the doors and he'd get on his knees and he'd pray 3 times a day to God.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that fearless,
Such
just
yeah.
courage. I mean, that's how it just feels like that's how Paul is. You know, he has that same alignment with God, just as Daniel did.
And God told it, or Jesus told him, "You're gonna go to Rome," so he knows that
You can't
eventually
touch him.
he's gonna be moved.
So he knows that he won't go to Jerusalem. At least he won't die there. You know, at least he knows I got to get to Rome before I even die.
Yeah, and he's even willing to die.
Yep.
So
yeah, it's true.
and if he dies, he goes to the Lord. So
It's true.
Yeah, then he gets to see Jesus again.
His famous saying in one of those is
Just like the road to Damascus.
To live is Christ, to die is gain.
Yeah.
In other words, I'll keep on living because that's Christ and I need to keep working for him. But to die is gain. You know, I'm going to be in his presence. Anything else you guys see in that little spot about them in Jerusalem? That's crazy.
I think it's funny that they're trying to ambush and kill him here again.
Yeah.
Yet we were back over here.
Yeah.
They were going to ambush and kill him.
2
You
years
remember?
later, they haven't missed
Do you
a beat.
remember that though?
Yes.
I can't remember who it was, the leader. It wasn't Festus, it was,
It was the,
it wasn't Felix, right?
it starts with an A. He's the high priest.
Ananias.
Ananias, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's funny because he sent, remember, Paul's nephew overheard them
Yeah.
conspiring, remember? And then so
Right.
he sent this like full on like platoon of soldiers with him. So
Yeah.
it's like he protected them there, but you know,
Do you think that Festus read the notes or something before he... You know, there's got to be some notes about Paul from Felix
that they tried to kill him.
2 years ago.
And Ananias must have written stuff down, so
They must
travel
have it
with
kind
him.
of in
It
like
could be.
written stuff, like these are his records basically as a prisoner, because
So that way Felix
instead
will
of
have a
just
heads up.
because he's kind of hobnobbing with them over here, he's hanging out with them for 8 to 10 days.
Yeah.
But right before that, he says, "Let some of your leaders come." He's like, "Oh no, you don't have to bring him here. I'm headed to Caesarea and he's there. You guys come that way." You know, it's like he knew what their plans would be, kind of. I think he read it in the notes. I'm sure they kept the letter.
That they were going to try to ambush him again.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
'Cause
Yeah, these
I
guys
think-
aren't like, what is it, lightening up at all.
Mhm.
They really want him dead, so
Yeah.
that would only make sense. They're going to try it again. It's crazy.
And they don't have any proof of anything. And I'm sure Festus was told that Paul is basically innocent and they can't prove anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's thinking, you know, what good is it to bring him here?
But he also doesn't want to make the Jews mad. He needs to keep them level. Because then he gets in trouble with Rome.
Yeah, I do notice that all the Herods, that was what they were always trying to do, is make Rome happy, make the Jews happy, make everybody happy. Right?
Yeah.
Like, just try to keep everybody happy. Just people pleasers. Okay, let's read the the second half of 6 all the way to 12. And this is Festus in Caesarea.
The next day he convened the court and ordered that Paul be brought before him. When Paul came in, the Jews who had come down from Jerusalem stood around him. They brought many serious charges against him, but they could not prove them. Then Paul made his defense. "I have done nothing wrong against the Jewish law or against the temple or against Caesar." Festus, wishing to do the Jews a favor, said to Paul, "Are you willing to go up to Jerusalem and stand trial before me there on these charges?" Paul answered, "I am now standing before Caesar's court where I ought to be tried. I have not done anything wrong to the Jews, as you yourself know very well. If, however, I am guilty of doing anything deserving death, I do not refuse to die. But if the charges brought against me by these Jews are not true, no one has the right to hand me over to them. I appeal to Caesar." After Festus had conferred with his council, he declared, "You have appealed to Caesar. To Caesar you will
To
go."
Caesar you will go. You did it.
Okay, we're not messing with you.
Best part.
You know your rights.
He does, huh? He's
Best
like-
part is a Roman citizen.
Yeah.
So why isn't he going to
Go straight to the
say
top.
that sentence?
Yeah.
He knew that sentence was going to get him there.
Yeah.
And Festus couldn't do anything about that.
Yeah.
He knew the magic words.
Well, and he's
I
probably
appeal-
thinking,
I
yeah.
appeal to Caesar.
Well, God said I'm going to Rome. Okay, so here's a little wrench in the thing. Do we all know who this Caesar is?
Nero. And he was insane.
It's Nero who basically down the road ends up killing so many Christians and blaming them for the fire in Rome and the whole thing, to the point where, I mean, he was the one that really started them burning them at the stake.
Didn't he, he decapitated them and put their heads on posts and lit the heads on fire to light the sidewalk or the
Of
walkway
his
gosh.
garden.
of his garden? Yeah.
It was their whole body, I
Yeah.
think. It was their whole
Oh, was
body.
it? Oh, I
Yeah.
thought it was just their heads.
Yeah, he just
Ew.
lit the whole Christian on fire and just lit his garden so that he could walk through
Yeah,
there.
he was a
at
real,
night.
he was a real tool.
Yeah.
He really was. Thank God that he's burning in hell for all eternity.
Yeah.
He was one wicked guy.
Super scary.
Oh yeah.
So Paul knows something about Nero.
Yeah.
And I mean, to follow the will of God to the point of putting yourself,
Lined up with that.
yeah.
Yeah. That's brave.
Yeah, to
That's-
let Nero have your fate.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That's really brave.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's like a good thing that Roman citizens could have this option, but it's a bad thing because you got a crazy Caesar right at this moment. Oh my gosh, what else do you guys see in that little section there? I can't remember which one of the videos we were watching said, although we cannot count on humans to do the right thing, we can count on God to turn it all into his plan. And
Yeah.
so, and I think that's where he got his peace. That he just rested in the fact that, well, if I'm here for 2 years, this is God's plan. If I go to Rome, this is God's plan. If they execute me, this is God's plan. And all along the way, he's like, okay, well, if I'm in this situation, then I'm going to witness to all of these guards.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm in this situation, I'm going to witness, and maybe I'll get to witness to Nero.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll turn a whole empire around.
Well,
He's
if anybody
almost-
could do it, it'd be Paul.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He's almost just right there with all the rest of them in the Hall of Faith
Oh,
in
yeah.
Hebrews.
Yeah. Did he write Hebrews? Who wrote Hebrews? Now I'm wondering because because he's not in the Hall of Faith, but just because I think they were going all Old Testament.
Hall of what?
Hall of Faith, which is
There's a chapter in
Hebrews chapter, is it 13?
It says the writer of
or
this
11?
letter, writer of this letter does not identify himself, but he was obviously well known to the original recipients. Though for some 1,200 years, from 400 AD to 1600, the book was most commonly called the Epistle of Paul to the Hebrews.
Oh, mine even lists people who they've suggested could have written it. Paul, Luke, Barnabas, Apollos, Silas, Philip, Priscilla, and others have been suggested because the name of the author is not given. But if you go to, is it 11?
Chapter 11. Yeah, and it says by faith, by faith, by faith, by faith.
This is what they
And it
call the
just
hall
keeps-
of faith.
Yeah. It's by faith Abraham went, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went. By faith Abraham, even though he was past age and Sarah herself was barren, was enabled to become a father because he was considered faithful, considered him who had made the promise. By faith, Abel offered
It
God a
just
better
lists them
sacrifice
all.
than Cain
They
did.
call it the hall of faith.
By faith, Enoch was taken from this life, so he did not experience death. There's one right after, by faith, Joseph, when his end was near, spoke about the exodus of the Israelites from Egypt and gave instructions about his bones. By faith, Moses' parents had hid him for 3 months after he was born because they saw he was no ordinary child, and they were not afraid of the king's edict. By faith, Moses, when he was grown up, refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. It just goes on and on and on. It's just the
through
coolest
the whole
chapter.
chapter.
Yeah.
It lists
really-
all of them.
Oh yeah.
As if you were walking down a hall in a museum, you know,
Yeah.
the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Yeah, giving
So cool.
each character.
Wondering on verse 6, why did he spend so long with them? 8 to 10 days.
Well, I mean, he was the new governor, and so he's trying to make them happy. So he probably spent a lot of time going to dinners with them,
I
and
just noticed my footnotes too. It says they convened the court to make his decision binding as a formal ruling. So that's why.
what does that mean? Say that in
The court convened. So when the judge says court is convened until tomorrow,
Yeah.
then they all leave and they come back tomorrow. He probably said court is convened for 8 to 10 days until I let you know further.
Okay.
And so that way, he has time to figure out how he's going to play this.
Okay. But after spending 8 or 10 days with them, so I'm thinking he was just trying to please them and make them happy, showing, that I'm the governor that cares, right?
I'm the people's governor.
Probably visiting, all of their families and having dinner, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, I'm sure.
Okay, so let's go back to 13 to 22. We're going to meet some characters that we're going to actually talk more about next week, but this will give us a teaser.
A few days later, King Agrippa and Bernice arrived at Caesarea to pay their respects to Festus. Since they were spending many days there, Festus discussed Paul's case with the king. He said, "There is a man here whom Felix left as a prisoner. When I went to Jerusalem, the chief priests and elders of the Jews brought charges against him and asked that he be condemned. I told them that it is not the Roman custom to hand over any man before he has faced his accusers and has had an opportunity to defend himself against their charges. When they came here with me, I did not delay the case, but convened the court the next day and ordered the man to be brought in. When his accusers got up to speak, they did not charge him with any of the crimes I had expected. Instead, they had some points of dispute with him about their own religion and about a dead man named Jesus,
It did me. Jesus.
who Paul claimed was alive. I was at a loss how to investigate such matters, so I asked if he would be willing to go to Jerusalem and stand trial there on these charges. When Paul made his appeal to be held over for the emperor's decision, I ordered him held until I could see him to Caesar. Then Agrippa said to Festus, "I would like to hear this man myself." He replied, "Tomorrow you will hear him."
And next week, we're going to actually meet Agrippa and Bernice, so that will be fun. That's a little teaser. But let's talk about this meeting with Festus and King Agrippa. He obviously was like, hey, I took over office and I got all these little loose ends to tie up that the other governor left me. He left a mess. What do I do about this?
Well, I just find it odd that they did not know about Jesus, because there's like this man Jesus,
This dead man.
dead man, who he claims is now alive. They've not got the news yet.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, the way I'm thinking, tell me if I'm wrong. Festus, and of course before him Felix, they are governors there, but I'm thinking that they are Roman.
Mm-hmm.
And Agrippa, he's part of the Herod family, so they are Jewish, or kind of the king of the Jewish, or of Israel kind of a thing. So I'm thinking that Agrippa probably knew who Jesus was because his grandpa tried to killed all the, when Jesus was born, he's the one that killed all the children.
Mm-hmm.
And his father is the one that ended up dying with the worms back in like chapter 12, I think it was.
He killed James.
Oh yeah, and he's the one that, so I think that the Herods, the Agrippas, they are very well aware of this movement.
Jesus was, yeah.
Yeah, Felix was aware of it because his wife was a Herod.
Oh.
But this
okay.
Festus, we don't know much about him. He probably is Roman, and it's like, I don't know what's going on. He probably just came in and not knowing about this whole thing.
I'm just glad my parents didn't name me Festus. It reminds me of the Addams Family.
Fester, yeah.
Yeah, that's what just always comes to mind. It's like, oh boy.
Yeah, it says that Festus knew very little about Christianity.
Okay, that was my thought. We don't know much about Festus coming in before he took over. We do know that he was a man of compassion, and he was actually a good leader that only led him for 2 years. He dies in office. We knew about Felix, that he knew about the way, and we knew that he was married to Drusilla, who was actually Jewish herself and part of the Herod family. So that's why he knew. But I have a feeling that this Festus doesn't know anything about Jesus or the way,
Mm-hmm.
or what this is all about.
So far, the only people that have told him anything are the Jews that are mad. Yeah.
So he's only seeing one side.
Yeah. Well,
But you
Yeah.
would have thought it would have spread wider than it had. I mean, at this point,
Yeah.
why would they have not known about Jesus?
Well, there
You know what I'm
was.
saying? Because Jesus, I mean, he had his disciples. His disciples
Yeah.
went out and made more disciples and spread the gospel about Jesus and the way. You know, it floors me that he didn't know, or he wouldn't have known.
Well, some people,
Maybe he had his head buried in the sand. I
even
don't
when
know.
we're watching Living Waters, you think in America,
Yeah.
most people know about Jesus and they know about his salvation. You think America, we kind of all know. Whether you choose to believe it or not, that's another thing.
But yet there's not a lot.
He runs across, from Living Waters, he runs across a
Great
couple
comfort.
people that he'll ask, do you know this? And they don't know. They've never heard it.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
'Cause
or
no
they
one's ever
heard
told
in
them.
the distance there was this
that's
Jesus guy.
bizarre.
Yeah. But there's people right here in America that just don't know anything about it.
Yeah, it blows your mind. It's like everybody should know, and it's probably just getting worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
they know his name when they curse it.
Yeah.
When they use it in a curse word, they know it.
And they probably know,
But they don't realize
of,
what they're saying.
kind of, but they don't really know the
They
story.
probably picked up on it as a bad word
Mhm.
or using it in vain just because their friends at the bar do.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mhm.
but you would think more in America would know. But you said they don't because Ray.
We're getting farther and farther away from, we have a now, it used to be that everybody went it seemed like everybody went to church. You know, even if they weren't Christians, they knew somebody who went to church, or they went to church as a kid or something like that. We're now part of a generation that are being raised by kids who said, I'm an atheist, I don't want to have anything to do. Our children are now, that age is now raising children and they're raising them completely out of church and not talking to them about it.
Right.
Yeah.
And the only way they're going to know is by a friend that is a believer in Jesus and that can share Jesus with them, you know, at a younger age where they have more of a chance to witness to them as opposed to an older, younger adult, which, you know, they tell you, oh, don't give me that. I don't want to hear it. And the people that I work with, none of them want to hear it.
Yeah.
And they're my age or a little younger or a little older.
So what's better?
And they say, oh,
To have
religion's the
grown
same.
up and never
No.
heard it and then have a chance to come at it fresh? Or is it worse to grow up in the church or around some form of it and have all lies, or no, but everything is lies, and you have to that's like if you know nothing and you meet Jesus, you don't have baggage. But if you're kind of in the church but not in the church, but in a false religion or in false beliefs, or you got to untangle all those lies. You have to untangle that to then find the truth, right?
Well, that's me. We
Yeah.
went to church when I was a kid. I didn't really pay attention, didn't really learn anything, and then the exposure that I got scared me away, and the only thing I had, you know, was, well, if God's so great, why? And people weren't answering it, so
Yeah.
once I got my question answered and started learning more, it was okay.
So did you have to untangle some things?
No, not really.
I am.
You're untangling?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you grow up in a church and you learn things that aren't necessarily right, then you have been so ingrained with those ideas
Yeah.
that they become a part of who you are. And then you have to, and then when you hear the truth, you have to go back and, well, I'm not that. I'm not that. I'm not that.
Yeah.
But in a way, it's kind of good because I was in a very performative church and I never felt good enough. I was never good enough, never good enough. So it's almost like if you're not good enough and you don't succeed, then you don't get the blessings that everybody else does. And so it's kind of freed me up that, yeah, you know what, I'm not perfect, but my salvation comes through Jesus Christ, not what I can do.
Yeah.
I mean, he's concerned with my moral life,
Yeah.
of course, but that's not where my salvation comes from.
And
Well,
that's
grace.
one of the hardest things to
Grace is a good thing.
Yeah.
the works versus grace thing is one of the hardest things to untangle because it becomes so part of your psyche and who you are. And I have tried to untangle that. That one's been a hard one for me to untangle because I find myself, you know, I know I'm supposed to run the race, I know I'm supposed to, and all that, but I'll turn it into a works thing if I'm not careful.
Yeah.
You know, I got to untangle it and say, you know, I don't have to do any of this, but I'm passionate and I want to do it. But I got to untangle that from have to and my value being attached to that. That's what it is. It's the value.
Right.
Like
yeah.
my value is not in what I do. My value is in the fact that I am saved by grace through Jesus. And that's where I need to hold my value. That's where peace is. Because there's nothing I can do to increase my value. I can just, you know, hang out at his feet and do what he, you know, pushes me to do, kind of, or urges me, like helps me be
I
passionate.
think that's the best part about John 3:16. You know, it doesn't say, for God so loved the rich guy on the hill down across there, or God so loved the beggar on the corner that will work for food. No, it says he loved the world, that he gave us, all of us, his son.
not exceptions. Anybody who
there's
wants to
No,
say,
we all
I'm in
gotta
line, I want it.
we
Yeah.
all got to make our decision, and our decision is going to affect our eternity. And it's sad that some people make the wrong decision.
Yeah.
It's a good thing when there's those of us who made the right decision, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, everybody's got their choice to make, and it's our job to help people along to make the right choice. And if they don't, then shake the dust off your sandals and go on to the next person,
Yeah.
right?
We're not earning badges.
Nope. Only in Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts are badges.
It does say we get crowns, and my mom was a big crown collector.
I can just imagine her wheelbarrow full of crowns, man.
Yeah.
She's probably got a wagon, a wheelbarrow. She's probably got a rope tied to
Yeah. But in the
going
end,
down the gold roads.
it just says we're going to be taking those crowns and throwing them before Jesus' feet anyway. So it really doesn't matter how many crowns you have. You're just going to be like, give me
I'm
one
just
crown.
saying, your mom's probably so happy right now. That's all I'm saying.
She has so many crowns. She already got rid of them, threw them at Jesus' feet probably almost immediately.
Probably. Probably.
Oh. Well, I mean, it's interesting that God told him he's going to Rome. And he's been kind of sitting with that. And I think as he's sitting there thinking, and he says, okay, you know, I appeal to Caesar. He probably for 2 years has thought about that, first of all. But that's probably knowing that it's Nero. That's a hard one. But then realizing that God is in complete control and he already said you're going to Rome, he's probably, I don't know, he's just fully laying back in God's will there.
He's just basking in his glory. In God's glory.
Yeah.
Paul is basking in God's glory because he knows. Right now he's safe and secure. He knows when he gets to Rome that might change. But, you know, at this point in time, he knows God's got him. No matter what they say or what they do, God's got him.
Yeah.
It's a good place to be.
He's in prison. Yeah.
But down here it says, to go to Rome as a prisoner was better than not to go there at all.
Yeah. Well, because he's like, I've got to fulfill my mission. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and one of the videos talked about God's province is what he used, and I was thinking. So I looked it up, and province. I was thinking it was like his. What do you call that?
Territory? Or
No.
area?
Actually, that's what it was. It was territory or an area, a province.
Province of Asia
Yeah.
Minor or the province of whatever, yeah.
I was thinking, what's that other word for God's sovereignty?
Sovereignty.
And I was thinking like sovereignty. So he used the word province, but that maybe that God had everything in control and that he had every detail, that even when it looked bad, kind of behind the scenes going, he's going to Rome. I mean, you know, even if it looks bad, it's like him moving behind the scenes.
So Paul is like a chess piece. God goes, your move,
Yeah.
right? He moves Paul.
Yeah.
Satan moves his minions. God goes, I don't think so. He moves Paul another step, right?
Well, and Satan's probably over there going, he's going to Nero.
Yeah.
And God's like, ha ha ha, he's going to bring more people to Christ. But he asked a question in that video, and I want you guys to think about this.
Okay.
He asked, what things are going on in your life that might be God working behind the scenes? You think about the way your life is going and it's not looking good, and it's actually looking like a big mess, but somehow you just know God behind the scenes is moving all the little details.
Well, for one thing, Bible study. Bible study, hands down.
Yeah,
I think that's God working behind the scenes.
yeah. In like all,
Or in the forefront.
yeah, in
you know.
many different people's lives.
Yep. I think it's been totally from the Lord.
One of the things I'm
It's been
having
good.
a hard time
Really good.
trusting is with my children.
Yeah.
And so I sit there and I think,
That's a hard one.
on the surface, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look promising.
Right.
But I've got to be a Paul and sit back and just say, this is God. Because each move actually looks a little worse than the first move. I'm like,
Yeah.
we're moving farther away from the goal. You know?
Yeah.
We're not getting any closer. But behind the scenes, could he be placing them right at the right thing for the conversion, for the bringing them back, for the, you know? So that's one of the things that I'm kind of hoping that God has, his providence,
His sovereignty
his sovereignty.
for the kids.
Well, sometimes I don't like the word sovereignty because that means that it's his will, and if they don't come back.
But he's not going to force them to do something they don't want to do.
Yeah.
You know, it's our job as believers to pray for our children.
And to prod.
Nowhere in here does it say prod.
Wait a minute, I'm not reading that. Is it your
boy.
children too that you are hoping that God's working behind the scenes, or can you see him? Can you see little things that he's doing behind the scenes?
Well, with Kyle, yes, but it's like, Kyle, I don't think you can dig your hole any deeper. You could, but let's not. You know,
Yeah, it's hard.
pay attention to those open doors that God's opening for you. Pay attention, and that, you know, he's a stubborn one like his mom, and that he has to learn things the hard way.
And maybe that's God's way of behind the scenes getting.
Yeah,
him
but
to where
it's
he
so
wants.
hard to just be a Paul and go,
Oh, I'm just so relaxed. It's all God's will.
But fortunately, we can look back and see where God has worked in our lives. And
Yeah, hindsight is 20/20.
Yeah.
It's easier in the past
Yes.
things
oh yeah, for sure.
to say, yeah, God definitely worked there.
And don't you love how you can look back now, where you were to where you are today? Even the short jaunt
Yeah.
back a little ways to where you are now.
Mhm.
I am just amazed at where God had, where I was, and where God's brought me, even to today. It just blows my mind. His hand has literally been on my life, bringing me out of the miry clay and the muck, and set my feet on his rock, on his rock. And it just makes me so happy that he's given me this opportunity where I was failing miserably, and now I'm succeeding because I'm putting him first in my life and letting him direct my steps, and not going, oh, I got this, don't worry, but I'm going to take the shortcut. It's like what we were talking about the other day, the Pilgrim's Progress. Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, we all got those backpacks with all those, rocks in it, and we just gotta have God just take one rock out at a time till we can just set the backpack down and just.
Well, and I told
done-
him in
be done
Pilgrim's
with it.
Progress, he's carrying this giant backpack, and he actually, at the time, he leaves it at the cross. And I said, well, he left that at the cross. I left it at the cross, and I said, oh, but I've been picking up some rocks along the way. I got a new collection.
I'm good at that.
Oh boy.
And I swear some other people have been putting rocks in that
yeah. She won't notice this one. But this one, oh, this is a big one.
I'm thinking Satan does a lot of that.
Oh, I'm sure he does.
And it's like, that's not a real rock, because I left that one at the cross. Why are you putting that one back in my backpack?
For sure. Sure.
Well, keep our eyes on what God is doing. Try to keep our eyes and look out for those little things.
Yep.
Those little moments of, oh, that's God behind the scenes. It doesn't look good. Here's the surface, it's not looking good, but ooh, look behind here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anything else you guys want? What's your biggest takeaway from this very short chapter?
Just to be diligent in our faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that reminds me of this bracelet you gave me, Abide in Him.
Abide.
Abide. That's exactly what Paul was doing.
He was abiding.
Yeah, he was.
And that's
Yeah.
where he found his peace.
Yeah.
And that means like there's in Psalms it talks about the eagle, like we sit underneath the eagle's wings, and the eagle is God, and He's got we're not getting rained on. The people who are trying to prey on us, all that kind of stuff, we're protected under those wings. We can't feel the storm. So to stay tucked under there, Yeah,
And
to abide.
Isn't the banner over me,
For
is
me is
love?
love. So
Isn't
you've
the
got,
banner protection too? His banner
yeah.
over us?
And that's
There's so many
the thing with
different examples.
With Sukkot, which means a tabernacle, a booth, a protection, something over you. And then Jesus actually, when He comes, it said He tabernacled among us. In other words, He came and He lived among us. He abided with us. So we take Him with us every day. Yeah, and that's what Paul was doing. He's showing that exact example of, okay, I just appeal to Caesar. I guess I'm going to Rome.
I always think of that that saying about the God that served Daniel and David, and He's the same God
Same
that
God.
serves me, and
Yeah.
that always makes me feel a little bit courageous.
Yeah. Well, it says God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So the same God that we are serving is the exact same God that they were serving. Yeah.
Makes me feel cool.
Well, it's definitely exciting because he protected them and guided
Yeah.
them. Look at King David
Mm-hmm.
running from Saul. Look at Daniel in the lion's den, and Abraham getting all nervous
Yeah.
because he didn't want to tell the other people that he ran across that was his wife. He says it's my sister. Remember?
That's right. Yep.
Because he was freaked out because he didn't think God was going to protect him. It's like, what on earth? Are you kidding me?
And here's the best
All
part.
the different things that
Even
God
with
had
their
done for them.
mistakes, Abraham landed himself in the hall of faith.
Yep.
Like, it's like all his mistakes all the way through. We see, that's what I love about the Bible. It tells the truth. I mean, it tells it like it is. Here's the heroes of God, and here's all their mistakes.
Yeah.
And you know what? It still means because of faith, you landed in the hall of faith. And righteousness was accounted to you because you had faith.
I bet the Hall of Faith is going to be a lot larger once we get there.
Oh, I bet there's a really big one we can walk down in heaven.
And see
Oh, that'd be neat.
all the different stories about all the different
yeah.
people
Yeah.
that have been born and died, believers,
Well, think about it. You're
that talk
talking
about
like
just different stories and different people.
the Underground Railroad.
Oh, Harriet Tubman.
Yeah, and all the people who are unknown, we don't even know their name, and they were working that Underground Railroad.
Yep.
Or all the people, all the different things throughout history.
Yep.
And the people they were God's people
Yeah.
who were working for God. What
Yeah.
about in Germany when they were taking all of the Jews?
Yeah.
And there were women who were actually smuggling out children underneath their clothing, babies. They were smuggling them out
Yep.
one by one, just
Yep.
pretending like they were just and they were German women
Yeah.
who smuggled out Jewish
They
babies.
were trying to help them and protect them, and
Yeah.
just think that those kids that they smuggled out went on probably more
Yeah.
than likely to have families of their own and have children of their own because of what those German women did.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And there was one
Absolutely
gentleman,
amazing.
I can't remember his name, but they actually did a talk show where they sat him down and they were
Oh, I
he was
remember seeing
older,
that. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so they're about to interview him just to ask him what it was like. He had smuggled out hundreds
It was
and
hundreds of small
children.
Jewish children.
Yeah, and he was part of that smuggling thing.
Yeah.
Anyways, and so they had filled the audience with all the adult children who
Oh.
had been smuggled out.
I'd have been bawling.
Yeah. So yeah, he's sitting there just ready to get interviewed, and all of a sudden the audience all stands up and says, "We are them, and I'm here because of you."
Could you imagine?
Oh my gosh, I just got chills. Yeah, but yeah, the Hall of Faith in heaven, that would be so cool. And what if we saw our own name and picture? We didn't do anything that big, but it doesn't matter. All you have to do is do one thing for God, and He is so proud of you.
What does he say? The least of
Oh,
you
yeah.
will be the greatest, and the greatest of you will be the least.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
The last shall be first, and the first shall be last,
Yeah.
and the least will be the greatest
and
in heaven.
The greatest will be the least.
Yeah. So they'll be celebrating the least even more than
Yep.
the greatest.
Yeah, because God's proud of any of us
Yeah.
that share Jesus with other people, especially the
Yeah.
people that we know that have their backs turned to Him right now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Well,
good Bible study.
good Bible study. Anything else you guys want to add? Oh my goodness. Okay, so next week we're going to talk about
Agrippa.
Agrippa
And,
and Bernice.
Bernice.
They are hilarious, so I hope you'll stay with us all through the week while you wait for this for the next chapter. Go ahead and Google. I think it's Herod Agrippa the second is this Agrippa, and her name is Bernice, and there's some really good stuff on them, a lot of gossip. So until next week, shalom, dear friends, and hope you have a wonderful week. Love you guys.